We've surveyed a broad picture of Métis people at the Portage beyond the walls of the agency house during this series. Bypassing obscuring generalities, we've explored unique family ties, forgotten names, cultural challenges, and storied legacies along the way. As we conclude this investigation, we'll explore one more aspect of this story at an international level and consider another meaning of Métis. During the same era that our agency house and its associated Yankee American culture began extending into Métis Portage, British Canada was grappling with Métis matters in a whole different way. During the first half of the 19th century, a number of Canada's long-standing mixed-blood communities emerged in combined efforts, asserting themselves as a cultural nation in their own right. In acknowledgement of the impression that they were not native but also not white, these combined voices concurred that, yes, they were something different, a new people group forged within the furnace of Canada's fur empire, with their own culture, ideologies, amalgamated French and Indigenous language, and claims to land upon which they subsisted. Seeking a hearing in Canadian politics at times proceeded through diplomatic channels, and at other times took the form of dramatic armed resistance. Storied settlements such as Red River, South Branch, and Penetanguishene were placed on the map as this era unfolded within Canada's larger 19th century journey of becoming a cohesive dominion. Today, the Canadian government recognizes self-governing Métis communities in 5 provinces. Membership within this First Nation is not descriptive of a percentage of Native and European blood, but rather reflects individuals' connections to the lineage and distinct culture of specific families which were formally recognized during this chapter of history. Because of this, Canada makes a distinction between Métis Nation members and the broader spectrum of intercultural families. Although government-recognized Métis Nation hotspot communities across Canada are separated by extensive distances, as well as regionally distinct historical experiences, there was mobility of community members among these scattered settlements, tying these far-flung families together. Stepping back, a conundrum dogs the shadows of Métis nationhood. Looking southward, recognition stops at the border, a legislative rather than cultural boundary. What is the manifestation of Canada's Métis Nation across the border in the United States? There were certainly cultural crosscurrents. Many of the same hallmarks of cultural identity spread far beyond recognized resistance communities and throughout the Great Lakes. But was there interaction between Wisconsin's Métis families and this unfolding Canadian drama? Are there specific connections with Métis Portage? Let's start from a bird's eye view. Voyageur boatmen formed a component of the French contribution to Canada's Métis First Nation families. This ethnically French workforce overlapped Canadian and American fur companies. This meant that Portage was likely a familiar vocational pass-through location for some of these individuals or their close relatives, since it was one of the most heavily used transport routes in the western Great Lakes. As this trade diminished within our Great Lakes region, a number of its mixed-blood families moved west toward recognized Métis Nation communities. But the connections get more specific. An iconic early Métis Nation settlement was located at the junction of the Red and Assiniboine rivers near present-day Winnipeg. Mixed-blood families had been establishing themselves in this resource-rich region, straddling the present U.S.-Canadian border already by the 1700s, and were joined by a flow of Scottish and other European immigrants when a remote settlement experiment was developed there by a British sponsor at the start of the War of 1812. Tension between newcomers and the existing Métis families was sparked by inter-fur company competition, but largely passed when circumstances changed in the 1820s. Following the War of 1812, Robert Dixon, a British Indian Affairs official who himself had a Dakota mixed-blood family, encouraged Wisconsin's trade communities and and even Wisconsin indigenous people, to relocate to the Red River settlement, a timely prospect as his audience had largely supported the British during the war. At the time of Dixon's proposals, the Red River region was a familiar area to Wisconsin's fur trading communities. Wisconsin's fur trade moguls were already fueling trade expeditions to this region. Some, including at Portage, regarded the Red River settlement's prospects with interest, and others, such as a Green Bay voyageur of mixed Menominee ancestry named Alexis Larose, a British veteran of the Battle of Prairie du Chien, apparently gave it a try. As the settlement experienced agricultural disasters in its early years, Prairie du Chien merchants became involved in supplying the remote post with provisions. These efforts underscored one of the Red River settlement's problems. It was remote from both Canadian and American supply chains. Necessity spurred innovation for the Red River Métis settlement. Supply trips to the Mississippi River became an annual rhythm for many families. Passable oxen trails across present-day Minnesota and Manitoba were identified, and special ox carts, which became an icon of Métis culture, were engineered to require no imported materials for their construction or repair, as a way of facilitating these remote journeys. Perhaps as a result of this ongoing supply connection, Canada's Red River Métis were known to and known by Prairie du Chien's mixed-blood families. But what of individual people? And what of Portage in particular? We have met a number of Grignons in this series. As Dixon and his associates promoted the Red River settlement in the 18-teens, Louis Grignon, Parriche's brother, was trading at the Portage. He received news at the Wisconsin Portage of this settlement's prospects during this period, and his younger brother Amabel's presence on the Red River watershed as a Hudson Bay Company trader at the time may have sharpened his interest. Reflecting on the possibility of a move into the other parts of Canada, he mused to Dixon, "It is time that we looked for a foreign asylum. British subjects are always black sheep. We propose Mr. Law and I to see if we can make an establishment somewhere in Upper Canada." The Grignon connection goes deeper. Louis and Parriche's first cousin, Charles Longlade Sr., lived at Penetanguishene, Ontario on Canada's Georgian Bay. In 1840, Charles joined a petition requesting Canadian government recognition of certain Indigenous-type rights of the Métis community residing there. The petition, which he and his Métis relatives developed, is considered a significant moment in the bigger story of Canada's Métis nationhood. But wait, there's more. Parriche's Portage-born son, also named Amabel, married Archange Lebowitz of Dakota and French lineage in 1828. Archange's brother was Louis-Georges Lebowitz, who fathered a prominent Métis Nation family line in Canada, and was also a signer of the 1840 Penetanguishene Métis petition. Sidestepping to another Portage Métis family we've also explored, Agatha's husband, Jean T. de Laurent, appears to have had a first cousin once removed named Charles Laurent. Charles married a daughter of Wyandot chief Thomas Conneau, and is recognized within the Penetanguishene Métis Nation community. As a final example, for a time Pierre Paquette hired his boss, Jean-Joseph Rolette's brother, Laurent, as his clerk. Laurent served as clerk at Portage until Paquette's death in 1836. His nephew, Jean's son, was Joe Rolette Jr. This nephew became entrenched within the Red River Valley's trade and commerce, and eventually married a Red River Métis woman named Angelique Jerome, whose parents were both of Canadian Métis ancestry. When the U.S.-Canadian border was established following the War of 1812, it resulted in a portion of the Red River Métis settlement centering around the modern town of Pembina, North Dakota, becoming part of the United States. When Minnesota became a territory, which at the time included this region, Rolette represented his Pembina Métis relations in Minnesota's territorial legislature. Although Rolette personally remained on the United States side, Joe and Angelique's daughter, Virginia, married a Métis man of the Canadian side, who would go on to become one of the first Métis Nation members to be elected to Canada's House of Commons, and was a leader of Canadian Métis voices opposed to armed resistance tactics. These relatives of our historical Portage Métis population open intriguing connections with Métis Nation community members north of the border. Canada's Métis Nation rolls recognize other familiar Portage and Indian Agency connected names as well: Jourdain, Godin, Lapierre, Plante, Roy, Pillon, Morin. What other cross-currents may be uncovered? We have surveyed several aspects of Métis Portage throughout this series, but there is more to unveil and investigate as the enshrouding layers of half-breed generalizations continue to be peeled away, revealing a rich, complex history. Le Portage Métis played a significant role at a pivotal time in our past. These individual stories, which were forged within the furnace of this turbulent era, portray insights into our shared past, which can offer perspective as we navigate our lives today.